Hi, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to the Future of Diplomacy's project's event on India's Transformed Horizon, a conversation with Rahul Gandhi. My name is Rohan Sandhu, and I am a second year in the MPAID program here at the Harvard Kennedy School. And much of my academic and professional interests lie at the intersection of political strategy, policy, and development in India. And as most people on this call would agree, India has been, at a critical crossroads over the last few years, especially as it negotiates the aspirations of its middle class, as its democracy transforms in various ways, and as the country reckons with, many of its founding values. Before we begin, we invite you to keep your video on and raise a virtual hand to ask a question during the Q&A portion. Also, be aware that this session is being recorded, that your image may appear in the recording, and that we may post this video to the Belfer Center's website. That being said, I'm very pleased to welcome Mr. Rahul Gandhi, member of the Indian Parliament, virtually to the Harvard Kennedy School. Rahul Gandhi has been a member of the Parliament since 2004. He currently represents the constituency of Wayanad in Kerala in the Lok Sabha. In 2007, he was named the General Secretary of the Indian National Congress and was in charge of youth and student organizations of the party. In 2013, he assumed office as vice president of the party and then served as president of the party between 2017 and 2019. In the past, Rahul has been member of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs, Human Resource Development, External Affairs, and the Finance and Consultative Committees for Ministry of Civil Aviation, the Ministry of Rural Development, and the Ministry of Finance and Corporate Affairs. Currently, he serves on the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Defense and the Consultative Committee for the Ministry of External Affairs. This discussion will be moderated by Professor Nick Burns. Professor Burns is the faculty chair of the Future of Diplomacy project and the Goodman Family Professor of Practice of Diplomacy and International Relations at the Harvard Kennedy School. With that, I'm going to pass on this virtual dais to Professor Burns.
Rohan, thank you so much for that very, very nice introduction of Mr. Gandhi. For all of you who don't know Rohan, he's one of our great students here at the Harvard Kennedy School. We have high ambitions that he'll return to India and play a major role in public life there. We're proud of him. So thank you for that introduction. And what a great pleasure it is for me to welcome my friend Rahul Gandhi to Harvard. I had invited Rahul to actually spend time at Harvard in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in person. But the coronavirus has made that impossible. And we were just talking that as soon as the pandemic is over, whenever it is over, a year or so from now, we're hoping to have him with us at the Harvard Kennedy School in Cambridge. I just wanted to add to what Rohan said. I've been friends with Rahul for a long time. We've met many times in my visits to Delhi when I was in government, and since I've arrived at Harvard. I have deep respect for him. Deep respect for his lifetime of service to India, to his country, the remarkable career he has had. I find him to be very thoughtful, a person with wide-ranging interests. Of course, there's a big connection that Rahul has to Harvard and his affection for Harvard, which we deeply appreciate. But I think he's a leader that India, of course, is lucky to have in the Congress Party and lucky to have him trying to chart the way forward for the country. We thought we'd have a good conversation with him, but I want to recognize before we begin that conversation, Rahul's sister Priyanka is on with us. I wanted to welcome her. I also wanted to welcome many of our distinguished guests who are with us, including Professor Tarun Khanna, who leads our Harvard-wide South Asia Institute here at Harvard University. Sam Pratoda, an old friend, glad to see him here. Aditi Kumar, who is the executive director of our Belfer Center, former student at the Harvard Kennedy School, now one of the leaders at the Harvard Kennedy School. My very dear friend and colleague, Ashley Tellis. Ashley and I worked on the civil nuclear agreement with India together on the development of our overall relationship with India. Carol Giacomo, who's a senior fellow at the Institute of Politics, New York Times editorial board, for a very, very long time. And I think before too long, we'll see Ambassador David Mulford, who was a really fine American ambassador to India, Ambassador Caroline Kennedy, who's another friend, our great ambassador to Japan for President Obama. So welcome to everybody who is on this call. The order of battle will be that I'm going to ask Rahul to say, really to speak to us about what's on his mind. I know he's been traveling recently in India. The country is facing extraordinary challenges, as is the United States. And when Rahul finishes speaking, I'll just have a couple of questions for him, and then I'm going to open it up. This is on the record. And so if you want to speak, I think everybody is Zoom proficient. Just go into the participants bar at the bottom of the screen, press the raised hand button. I will call on people in order. We'll get as many people into this conversation as we can. If you can't make that work, just wave at me. I will call on you and look forward to it very, very much. But Rahul, welcome. Welcome to Harvard, at least virtually, and the floor is yours. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here. And I'd like to thank you for setting this up. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I want to start with a few remarks. If you look at India, and you look at India over the last 20, 30 years, there's been a central challenge that all our governments have been trying to deal with. China and India have a similar problem, largest population of youngsters, and we need to give them a credible future, a vision. And it is a system that is part rural, part urban. They've managed their migration, they've managed their problem in a very organized and a sort of authoritarian way. Our system has been democratic, open, with constant feedback. So that's the central problem that we are trying to solve, which is essentially the crux of it is it's employment for our youngsters at massive scale, right? This was going fine until a few years ago. And then it started to break down. A few days ago, a journalist asked me, why is the opposition in India so weak? And I said, look, an opposition is not just a political party. An opposition is a particular voice in the nation. And that voice is determined not just by a political party, it's determined by the institutions that provide a framework within which the opposition parties play. And if the framework is not fair, then there is no opposition possible in a democratic system. What has happened over the last 4 or 5 years is that our institutional structure, the Indian institutional structure, has systematically been captured by the RSS and the BJP. The press is controlled, parliament is not allowed to function, and the voice of the opposition, which by the way is 60% of India, is stifled, which means that India no longer has the critical feedback loop. Now, there have been some dramatic consequences of this stifling, of this capture of institutions. Two things are very, very clear. The first is that it has allowed the Prime Minister of India to make completely arbitrary decisions that are divorced from the institutional structure, decisions where he doesn't require a conversation with the institutional structure. And I'll give you a couple of examples, which to me are just, they're stunning examples. The first is demonetization. 8 o'clock one evening, the Prime Minister of India, over 1 billion people, suddenly turns around and says, I am demonetizing the Indian currency. 500 rupee notes, 1,000 rupee notes, they are now worthless. It was a shockwave across the country. Devastated small and medium businesses, just finished them. Small and medium businesses are the people who give us employment. They're the backbone of our employment system. And I was stunned by this decision, and I actually went into the details of how this decision was taken. And I asked some of the people who took it, and you'll be absolutely shocked. The central economic institution, the equivalent of the Federal Reserve, the RBI, was not asked, was not consulted. The finance minister didn't know. The cabinet didn't know. They were simply locked up in a room and the decision was taken. None of the ministers knew that India's currency was about to be demonetized. And there was a direct consequence of this. I mean, Manmohan Singh ji got up in the Rajya Sabha and said, look, 2% GDP loss. And a year later, 2% GDP lost. Thousands and thousands and thousands of farmers destroyed. Thousands of small and medium businesses just blown apart. And what does the press do? The press praises the decision. When you ask them, do you actually believe in the decision? Quietly, they tell you, no, this is a crazy decision. But the structure is controlled. So a decision that is completely arbitrary, extremely damaging, there's no feedback coming. And then it happens again. GST, an extremely complex decision in a country like India with multiple states, different languages. We struggled with it. GST is a negotiation. It's not an event or a one-off decision. It's a negotiation, a complex negotiation where you've got to sit down with all the states, the chief ministers, ask them, how does this work? With huge numbers of stakeholders. The Prime Minister says, 12 o'clock at night, we're announcing it. We sent him a message saying, for God's sake, don't do this. You have to speak to the stakeholders. You just cannot do this. This will be devastating. Boom. 12 o'clock, it's launched. And then there's just an explosion because nobody understands it. Supposed to be one tax, one nation. There's 5 taxes, 28% tax. It just, again, blows apart the economic system. Again, no feedback. And now finally in Corona, you've got a situation where all Indian institutions are saying that, listen, this is a very serious problem. I said it in February. I was ridiculed. All Indian institutions, serious medical institutions are saying this is a very serious problem. The Prime Minister says we're going to knock this problem out in 22 days. I met many, many workers, right, who were walking thousands of kilometers without food and water. Literally starving. 150 of them died. And they're asking me, but why didn't he give us 2 days notice? Didn't he understand that we will get thrown out of our houses because we survive on daily wages? And if we don't have daily wages, we will be thrown out of our houses. We have no choice but to walk. Now, this knowledge and this information was available to the Indian system. The Indian institutional structure knew this. They understood very well that if you do not give 2 or 3 days notice to the laborer, he is going to get up and have to walk 1,000 kilometers. Completely ignored. Why? No feedback. So what has happened is that the democratic feedback that used to guide this process of giving our youngsters jobs has just imploded. It's like a pilot flying an aircraft who switched off all the instruments. And now he's flying without instruments. And each decision becomes an event. So you go from complex negotiations, complex conversations, fights, discussions, to and fro, to suddenly we're doing it at 12 o'clock. Thank you very much. It's going to be done. And then once you've done it, then the consequences of what you've done. And the result today is the Indian economy is devastated. Minus 24% GDP growth. The worst performance on the planet. And we were already entering this space. This is not COVID. This is pre-COVID. We had already devastated our economy pre-COVID, and unfortunately for us, now COVID has come. So it is now a much bigger problem. So the first thing that is, the first casualty of this capture of institutions is these arbitrary decisions that are just devastating. And they are happening across the board. They happen in the economic field. I mean, the Prime Minister says 22 days to fix Corona. And then he says, take your thalis and beat them together. Take your plates and beat them together. And then after a few days, he says, put on your mobile phones and shine the lights to the sky. And the thing is, it's a serious business, this. People are dying. You have a lockdown. You have a country that has multiple states. And frankly, each one of those states has a chief minister and district administration that is very well capable of taking on Corona without a problem. Every single state, if you allow the decentralized power of the state to kick in, you look at Dharavi, completely cracked the problem. The local administrator cracked the problem. Our MLA cracked the problem. But no, the Prime Minister views the problem as a centralized problem. He doesn't want to use the resources of the states. He doesn't want to use the resources of the district administration. He just says national lockdown. That's it. It's over. And suddenly, national lockdown, the minute you have decided on a centralized lockdown, and you have taken power away from the states, and you have taken power away from the districts, your COVID response is gone. It's finished. So these type of decisions are actually devastating our path forward. There's another very dangerous thing that is happening, which is that if I use the analogy of an aircraft, there's passengers sitting in the back. The pilot is flying the aircraft. He's not looking at the instruments. The passengers are not allowed to scream. So they're just sitting there. They can see something's going wrong, but they are not allowed to express themselves. I'll give you an example. I went to UP. I went to UP to see a family the other day. A Dalit girl. She is raped. Her neck is broken like that. And it just astounds me that the police is victimizing the family. The government of Uttar Pradesh has unilaterally said no rape has taken place. The police are harassing the family. I go to their house, they are begging me and saying, please do something. The police are attacking us. The police are threatening us. And I'm thinking to myself, but these are not the criminals. The criminals are those people, and these people are being harassed. The district magistrate comes and kicks the father, abuses the father and tells him, you dare open your mouth. You can't open your mouth. And he tells him, you see what we'll do to you. Rahul Gandhi will go home, but you see what we'll do to you afterwards. Why? Because it's become only about the perception, only about the image. The reality is of no consequence. Unfortunately, the poor man doesn't have the power to take on the police. So he keeps quiet. He's torn up inside. He's crying inside, but he keeps quiet. So what you're doing is you're raising the ante. And when you're going to get a reaction, the reaction is not going to be muted. It's not going to be soft. It's going to be aggressive and it's going to be nasty. And so those are the type of things that are resulting from this capture of institutions. I went to Punjab. The government, without any conversation with anybody, suddenly has announced these 3 agricultural laws, which essentially destroy the life of the farmer. Now, he's furious, and he's going to take action. He is going to revolt. He is going to get aggressive. Now, this was completely unnecessary, because if you had just had the conversation, called him into a room and said, listen, what do you think? How are you thinking about this? How can we help you? What do we need to do? There's no problem. So it is almost taking what is our strength, which is our conversation, which, with all due respect, the Chinese don't have, which is our democratic values, and thinking that it's our weakness. So that's where this thing has completely gone out of whack. And This thing, it reflects internationally too. China is today sitting inside our territory. It's sitting inside our territory because it understands that something has gone very wrong. It understands that the Indian economy is weak. It understands that there is an internal tension that is there in India. So for me and for the opposition parties, it is of paramount importance that we take back these institutions, that we bring back these institutions which belong to the people of India. They don't belong to an organization. They belong to the people of India. So that is how we view our politics. It is bringing back the voice of the Indian people and giving it back to them. Sorry, I'm emotional about this, and I probably went over my limit. Thank you.
Rahul, thank you. Thank you for your remarks. Thank you for being so frank with us. We heard every second of it, so the connection is perfect. So thank you for that as well. I had wanted to ask you several questions. I think I won't do that. I'll just ask you one, because I want to get quickly to questions from our students and from faculty and our guests. And another member of our faculty has joined us, and that's Professor Akash Deep. I want to welcome Professor Deep for being with us. Rahul, before we came on today to the Zoom, we talked about the fact that the United States and India have the weakest global records in fighting the coronavirus, which is not a distinction either of us wanted to have. You've just referred to the bloody conflict along your contested border with China, where I certainly feel that for many years, China, the PLA, has been the aggressor on that border. But I suppose those issues will come up in the conversation. So I'm going to ask you one question, and then I'm going to open it up. And please just let us know if you want to speak again. Just press the raised hand button. I'll call on people in order. Here's my question. Rahul, you were kind enough to invite me to be with you on your podcast earlier this summer. And we had, I thought, a vigorous conversation and a good one. And both of us talked about the crisis within our own democracies. I think a lot in the 21st century is riding, in terms of global peace, global stability, on the ability of India and the United States to be successful individually and successful together in the Indo-Pacific. We are facing a very self-confident Chinese leadership, which over the past summer, in smothering the democracy of Hong Kong, in attacking Indian forces on the border, and in bullying the Filipinos and Vietnamese in the South China Sea, as well as locking up to 1 million Uyghurs in Xinjiang province in Western China. They're showing their true colors. But I think my sense is before India, the United States, Japan, Australia, the Quad, can successfully limit China, we've got to work on our own problems within our own glass houses. And here's my question to you. You've seen the United States, the American people struggle with the racial crisis over the summer. The glaring lack of racial equality and racial justice in the United States, that's on us as Americans to redeem ourselves and to heal our country. As a friend of India, someone who wants India to succeed, I worry about Hindu nationalism. I worry about policies of the government and others to repress Muslims in India. And so it seems to me that we're both struggling with almost existential challenges inside our democracies. And until we overcome them, we're going to be limited in our ability to be successful in our external policies. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And I welcome your thoughts.
I completely agree. You use the term Hindu nationalism, but it's actually not Hindu nationalism, because there's nothing in Hinduism that says you should oppress, harm, bully, or hurt people. So I don't agree with the phrase. If you ask me what Hindu nationalism is, it's what Mahatma Gandhi used to do. That's Hindu nationalism, which is embracing everybody, which is accepting all different ideas, which is accepting all different perspectives, which is accepting Sikhs, Hindus, Muslims, Jewish people, Christians, different languages. So to me, that is nationalism. And Mahatma Gandhi was, in my view, a true Hindu. But the thing to understand is it is not only against Muslims. It is against voice. It is against anybody who disagrees. So it is against the Dalits. It is against the tribals. It is against the Muslims. It is against the Sikhs. It is anybody who contests the idea that somebody has absolute power in India. There is no question in their mind that that idea can be challenged. And as I said, this is going to create a real serious problem for our country, because it is going to create multiple imaginations inside our country. There will be a Tamil imagination, there will be a Sikh imagination, there'll be a Malayali imagination, there'll be a Maharashtrian imagination, there'll all be different imaginations. So it is actually what the Indian philosophical system is very good at doing, is bringing all these imaginations together and saying, here is what is common between you. And what these people are doing is focusing on the non-common and saying, look, you don't speak Tamil. You should speak Hindi. So the major brunt of it is taken by the minority community and the Muslims. But it is everywhere. The same thing was being done to the little Dalit girl who is molested, killed, and then the state says she was never molested. I was surprised they didn't say she was never killed. And then the chief minister says this is an international conspiracy. So it's a deeper thing. And I suspect it's a deeper thing in the United States too. It hurts the African Americans most. But it's an attitude, and it hurts a lot of people. It's an attitude that I understand everything, or you don't understand anything. And I have the right to speak about anything because I'm powerful. And you have no right because you're not powerful. And then, of course, the weaker communities take the biggest brunt of it.
Thank you very much. And what you described in the challenge that you're facing to perfect your democracy is very much the challenge we face, because we're proud in the United States that we're an immigrant society, that we're multiracial, multi-religious, multi-ethnic. But the current government, President Trump's government, it tries to depict the United States in a very different way in its exclusionary policies towards immigrants and towards refugees and towards minorities in our country. I think we do, in very different historical and cultural contexts, face a variation of the same problem as democracies. Thank you for that, Rahul.
Can I just?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Just one thing. You see, it's okay for me to blame the Prime Minister and for you to speak about President Trump. But I think it's a deeper problem than that. I mean, what I see in India is that we are struggling to solve that initial problem. The reason a Modi arises is because we as a country have not been able to give a vision to the youngster. We have not been able to say to him, look, this is how you're going to get a job. We've not been able to, if I was to put it really bluntly, we've not been able to compete effectively with the Chinese. Today, if you look at jobs, if you look at production, if you look at value addition, China is ahead of everybody else. And to me, that is the central question. How are we going to, both of us, you in a different way, we in a different way, how are we going to create a society where we can actually solve this central problem? So I want to go further than just say, listen, Mr. Modi is the problem. I think the problem is bigger than Mr. Modi or the leadership. I think the problem is that as societies, we are failing our people. I can't comment for the United States. I can comment for my country. I can see that my country under Mr. Modi was really struggling to give our youngsters a job. I cannot go away from that question. When I look at this phone, it's Chinese. I look at this mask, it's Chinese. So the real challenge is, can we organize ourselves? And I don't see it as a violent confrontation against the Chinese, but can we organize ourselves in a democratic structure to actually compete properly and start producing jobs for our youngsters and start producing whatever it is, telephones, televisions, etc., etc., etc. So I go beyond the Modi-Trump narrative. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Rahul. Thank you. We have a lot of students and others guests who would like to speak. So what we'll do is take as many questions as we possibly can. We've got about a half hour left. So Kabir Nanda, you're the first to ask a question, please.
Mr. Gandhi, thank you very much for taking out the time to speak to us. I just wanted to build off where you left off. We're in a situation today in India where a lot of the people in this room right now are already committed to democratic and secular values. We're also in a situation where the India story that I knew when I was growing up, which was of opportunities and jobs and progress, is far beyond shaky ground. It's almost over. But at the same time, there's a deep polarization in society where there are a lot of people who are completely at the other end of the spectrum. There's a lot of hatred, and I'm seeing people vote against their own self-interest, against the idea of getting jobs. And at the same time, they seem very happy about it. So you mentioned, people banging pots and pans and everything, and the Prime Minister asking us to do that. But in my neighborhood in Bombay, people did it and they loved it. And so there's this tremendous divide that I see. And I just wanted to understand, what are your thoughts on how the Congress can try and bridge that divide and bring people back over? Because there are also a lot of people that carry a large amount of angst, a lot of people who are young who have a certain idea of history, which may or may not be rooted in fact. And so how do you plan to counter that? Thanks.
The first thing is, thank you for your question. The first thing is that the current way is not going to solve the problem. Banging thalis is not going to create jobs. It's just not going to do it. You might fantasize that if I bang a thali or I shine my mobile phone, I will be able to magically create jobs. Not going to happen, right? And that's a temporary phenomena, because at the end of the day, you can't get away with it. You have to eventually give these millions of youngsters a job, and they're going to turn on you if you don't. So I don't see it as a hopeless situation. I don't view a nation's trajectory as just one continuum. There are ups and downs, and yes, we had an up, and we had an up from 91 to 2012, I would say, and now we've hit a little roadblock. Why? Because the vision we used is no longer applicable. It's not working. It worked from 90 to 2012. And I remember having a conversation with Manmohan Singh, and where we said, look, actually, the vision that took us from 91 to 2012, 2000 and this point is not working anymore. It's just not working. It's failing. So you have to reach into the country and you have to develop a new vision. And my main complaint with Mr. Modi is that he is dilly-dallying, he is wasting people's time, but he is not starting a conversation with the Indian people and saying, listen, this is what we got to do. And if we don't do this, we're in serious trouble, right? And that to me is the role of a leader. The role of a leader to me is not to tell his people that, look, we are facing a tragedy and it's going to be over in 22 days. That's a lie. He knows it, I know it. So I think people like you, youngsters like you, frankly, you have an opportunity that I didn't have. Left, where you are in the 90s, it was all swimming. It was working just fine. So we were like, okay, this thing's working. So you push it along while it's working. But you have a great chance because you have the opportunity to build something completely new. And you owe it to your country. I owe it to my country. You owe it to your country. And I'm confident that all those people who say, yeah, we're happy clapping our hands, I'm confident it won't take them long to realize that clapping hands is not going to do it. I mean, clapping hands is not going to stop the Chinese from entering Indian territory. I mean, you might like to believe it, and I'm happy you do, but it's not going to do it. So at some point, you've got to come face to face with reality. And I think that's what both our nations are about to do, which is come to terms with our reality.
Thank you very much. Let me call on two students to ask questions sequentially, and then Rahul, you can respond to both of them. Pariru Ratan first, and then Rohan Sandhu.
Yeah, sorry about that.
We can hear you fine, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today, Mr. Gandhi. It's a pleasure to have you with us. My name is Pariru, and I'm a second-year PhD student in public policy at Harvard Kennedy School. My question to you is to do with the issue of Hindutva that you brought up in the beginning. And I completely agree when you talk about the burning down of institutions of accountability that the government is continuously and sort of foregrounding its stances with. Recently, we've seen sort of in the news, the Congress shift towards a soft Hindutva approach as well. You're sort of visiting temples during elections, the party congratulating the Centre on the Ram Mandir, the Madhya Pradesh manifesto on. I'm wondering if this is sort of the strategic principle the Congress has envisioned it wants to go down. And also, if you could shed some light on sort of the internal workings of the Congress party in the way it builds the organizing ourselves that you were talking about, or the way manifestos and the way visions for a new future are created. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So what's interesting about the temple visits is it was a campaign in Gujarat where I went to a temple where that became soft Hindutva. What they didn't show you was that I had been to mosques as well. I had been to gurdwaras as well. That was not shown on TV, right? Now, as a politician, right, I'm driving on a street. And this is how I view it. I'm driving on a street and somebody says, please come into this place that I respect tremendously. I cannot say no to him. I cannot say to him, I'm sorry, I'm not going to come in because it's a mosque. I'm not going to come in because I got to go in. If I'm driving past a street and somebody comes to me and says, Mr. Gandhi, please come into my house. Most of the time I don't say no. I'm like, okay, let's go. Show me a house. It's my job to respect people's sentiments. I cannot say, listen, I'm not going to respect your sentiment. Where it becomes soft Hindutva is if I say, you're a Muslim, I'm not coming to your mosque. You're a Sikh, I'm not coming to your Gurdwara. You're a Dalit, I'm not going to listen to you. That's where it becomes soft Hindutva. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, the Congress party it's an organization that was constructed by Mahatma Gandhi. And that essence is in the DNA. And the Congress essentially organized itself around mass action. So the Congress takes mass anxiety, mass pain, and then goes towards it and embraces it. So as a Congress person, you have to always have your radar on to who is hurting, who's feeling pain. That person is feeling pain, go there. And then when you go to the pain and you touch the pain, the organization builds. If I have a complaint about the Congress, it is that they have not done enough of that. That they have not gone and said, okay, listen, we are here now, you're hurting. And so that's broadly the design that Mahatma Gandhi put together, and it still works. Wherever we are successful, we are doing that effectively.
Thank you very much, Pariru. Rohan.
Thank you. Mr. Gandhi, you've been one of the few, if not only leaders, who's been relentless in your attacks on the RSS. And you often talk about the BJP as RSS as being synonymous when you talk about the BJP. And this is obviously related to both Kabir and Pariru's questions. But I guess I think there's a recognition that the BJP is only one part of the RSS project. There's often, there's an infiltration of the civil services, with training academies being run by the RSS, and the RSS is also a critical part of the BJP's ground game in terms of mobilizing voters. Against this, and I think this was an implicit part of, all the three questions you've been asked prior to this, what is the Congress Party's strategy to reignite its ground game, to make its party workers mobilize voters and to communicate what you were talking about as your vision as a leader to the public? Because clearly the messaging of the BJP seems to be working for the public, and the messaging of institutions isn't working for the voter. So how would you change that?
I'll ask you a question, right? Let's say you're in the United States, and let's say the biggest telecom operator in the country put a Donald Trump app with every phone, right? Gifted the Donald Trump app, put it as a pre-installed app on every phone that is sold in the country. And none of the other opposition leaders got that. What would happen in the United States? The one thing that would happen is, excuse me, how is the company put this man's app on pre-installed it on the phone? Second is, somebody would say, wait a minute, this is completely anti-competitive. How can you put this app on everybody's phone and not put a competitor's app on everybody's phone? Well, Narendra Modi's app was pre-installed on the biggest telecom operator in our country. If you look at the media spend that the BJP has versus the media spend that we have, the ad spend they have versus the ad spend we have, you can't compare them. If you look at the funds they throw at an election and the funds we throw at an election, we can't compare. So the thing to understand today is that we are not fighting a political party. This is not the Democrats versus the Republicans. Please understand. The American institutions are still holding their own and fighting back. We are fighting all the institutions of the Indian state, which have been captured by a political party and a social so-called organization. The RSS runs hundreds of thousands of schools, right? So for us, there is only one route, it's mass action. We cannot use the courts, we cannot use the press, we cannot use anything. For us, it's only mass action. As people get agitated, which they are getting and which they will get agitated, that's our only avenue left. And that's how we are organizing.
Thank you very much, Rohan, for that question. We have three people I'd like to call on in order. Ruth Ann Philip and Nakul, I think you had your hand up as well, and Tanvi, our guest and friend Tanvi Madan. Ruth Ann, you're first.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, Ambassador Burns, as well as Mr. Gandhi for coming to speak to us. My name is Ruth. I am a second-year master's degree student at the Fletcher School at Tufts and a Pickering Fellow. My question is regarding the big farmer strikes recently in India, where you have participated as well. And so I was just, but we see at the same time COVID numbers are rising since many people are not following the protocols and things like that. So as the main opposition party and being a responsible party, what is your party stance against in the light of this, as well as how you're going to support the farmers' issues, as well as keep in mind the COVID protocols? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. India has a food security architecture. That food security architecture is basically a minimum support price, a food production system, a food procurement system, and a food distribution system. These three laws essentially destroy that architecture. What it means is that the farmers of Punjab will not have a future. I have to reassure the farmers of Punjab that we stand with them and we will defend their interests. If I do not stand with the farmers of Punjab, and if I don't say, listen, we are going to stand with you and defend their interests, somebody else will. Right? And that somebody else could be somebody who's detrimental to my country, for example. So So it becomes imperative that I go there and I stand with them. Now, we're in time of COVID, absolutely. So I have to do it in the most responsible way possible. I have to have a conversation with the district administration and say, okay, what is allowed, what is not allowed? Okay, if everybody wears a mask, is that okay? Yes, it's okay. It's not okay, then fine, don't do it. So we have to be flexible on that front. But I cannot walk away from the farmers of Punjab and say, thank you very much. You're on your own. I can't do that.
Thank you very much. So Nakul has ceded his place because his question has already been asked. That was Rohan's question. So we'll go to Tanvi. Tanvi, please, welcome.
Thank you, Nick, and good evening, Mr. Gandhi. You mentioned the China-India boundary crisis, and I was just wondering what kind of posture you would like to see the US take vis-a-vis the crisis, and if you could offer us your assessment on the state of US-India relations more generally. Thank you.
I think, and as I've told Nick earlier, the Chinese have a clear strategic vision. It's crystal clear. When I look at the India-America relationship, I see conversations about defense. I see conversations about silos, but I don't see a strategic vision. I don't see a strategic vision that compares to the vision that the Chinese are laying out on the table. And to me, both the United States and India owe it to each other to have that conversation, to have a conversation about what does that vision look like. And it's not a military vision. There is a military component to it, but it's an economic vision. It's a social vision. It's a way of looking at the world. The Chinese have put on the table their way of looking at the world. And we have to put on the table an alternative. And it goes much beyond these are the type of aircrafts we are going to use, and this is the type of cooperation, military cooperation we're going to have, and these are the IITs and Harvard are going to have a conversation. It's a vision of the world, right? And as India, there is a strategic relationship with the United States which we value, and it's very important to us. But we have a emerging power, which is a neighbor, and we cannot simply ignore that power. We cannot simply say, sorry, that power does not exist. So that to me is the structure. The Chinese on the border, they have sensed weakness. They have sensed that the Prime Minister will defend his image at any cost. They have sensed that economically India is in trouble. They've sensed that the COVID response has been fundamentally flawed. And so they've said, okay, let's test them. And they've done it.
So I want to call on Rahul, our friend Ashley Tellis next. I just want to make one comment. I think the advantage we have here in the United States as we look at India is that we really have full support among Republicans and Democrats that we wish to have a much bigger, closer relationship with India. Republicans and Democrats don't agree that the sky is blue, but they do agree that India is very important for our future, not just from a military point of view, but for the democracy questions that you and I have talked about over the past summer on the podcast and today. And that gives me some comfort that no matter what happens on November 3rd, whether Donald Trump is given a second term by the American people or Joe Biden is elected, I think you can count on our entire leadership in both parties agreeing on the following assertion, that the rise of India as a strategic power in South Asia and East Asia is in the national security interests of the United States. I think that's what drove Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and now even Donald Trump. And that to me is one of the strongest parts of the foundation, but Ashley can agree or disagree. I want to call on him next.
Can I just comment? Can I just say a word on that?
Please, Rahul, yeah.
I think you'll find similar sentiment in India. I don't think you'll find a different sentiment in India. I think you'll have across party lines a sense that the United States and India share a strategic partnership and will work together.
Thank you. Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Gandhi. It's good to see you again. I have a question which arises from the issue that you raised about India's performance between 91 and 2012. It seems to me that the heart of the reforms since 1991 that successive governments undertook was to enlarge and free the Indian domestic market, deepen India's economic engagement with the world, while at the same time building a safety net to help with the adjustments that the state would have to take in order to protect the underprivileged in the process of this transformation. It seems to be now that there is real diffidence about whether the course of further liberalization is the course that India should embark on. I wanted to know what your own thoughts were at this juncture. Do you still believe that India's long-term future is best helped by a deepening and enlarging of its domestic market, its external connections with the world economically, while continuing to protect its most vulnerable? What is the Congress Party's view on essential liberalization again?
The element that needs to be added, and I think we did work on this when we were in government, but not aggressively enough, is the job creation element. So we did just fine, except the job creation element. And if you look through the 90s and you look all the way to 2012, there was a weakness there. And to me, a large part of the weakness was that we were not developing the job production engine, which is the small and medium business. So we were not scaling up those small and medium businesses into bigger businesses. If you look at the records, you'll find that almost no Indian small and medium businesses become big businesses. So a conscious effort that we have a job problem and that we have to focus on not just and only on GDP growth, which we do have to focus on, because if you don't have the basics, then you're done. But you have to have a job number next to that GDP growth number. I don't think that cutting off India from the rest of the world is going to solve your job problem. I don't think it can be done, because there are linkages that you require. There are technological linkages that you require. The global economy is too connected up where you just say, okay, now we're shutting down. You won't be able to solve the problem. So yes, we're going through a little bit of a blip, but I don't see the answer to be to run the other way myself. After all, if you look at the Chinese, right, they became the production center of the world because of the United States. With all due respect, it's the United States that made them the center of global production. So I don't see that option. There will be a sentiment in India which will try to push you in that direction. I think that sentiment should be ignored.
And can I ask a follow-up, Nick, if you don't mind?
Very quickly, actually, I want to get two more people in before we quit. You have a quick follow-up on this?
The quick follow-up, Mr. Gandhi, is do you see job creation to be primarily the responsibility of the private sector and the market, or do you think there is need for state intervention to make that happen?
I mean, I'm bell the cat however you want. I think the private sector is normally more efficient at doing it. So I would tend to focus in that direction. But to me, it's the problem that needs to be addressed. And you need to figure out, okay, this is the problem. Okay, these are the tools to do it. We can use this tool, this tool, this tool. But I think if you look at our vision between the 90s and 2012, it was a growth vision. But it didn't have a job component to it. We were saying, look, we're growing at 9%, look, we're growing at 7%. But never did I read, oh, we added X million jobs. And I think that needs to be brought into the consciousness of the Indian people and the consciousness of Indian business. That, listen, it's not good enough. We got to create the jobs. We got to add value. We got to increase production. We got to make things. You know, I got a real surprise. I had gone to China during this. I had gone to the Kailash mountain, and I was having a conversation with one of their sort of local fellows there, and I was astounded because what is called a collector in India, right, is called a district producer in China. A simple thing. You're like, oh my God. So the Indian administration the mindset is collect. The Chinese administration, the mindset is produce. That's a small thing. But we got to get into the production mindset.
Fascinating. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Ashley. We have about 5 minutes left. I want to try to call on two people. Smriti, I know you've been very patient, and Aditi Kumar. We'll call on both. Rahul, I know you've got a hard stop, so we'll try to do this in just a couple of minutes. So, Smriti, you're first, and then Aditi.
Thank you. I'll keep it short. I just wanted to probe a little further on what you've already said, what Kabir and Rohan tried to ask you, which was, I understand that the cards are against you and everything's being controlled by the BJP now, but given that, what is it that you do now? And I understand that there's a long period that you're trying to wait out, but what do you do immediately for a lot of people who are being suppressed in the country? And how do you think about that as a leader of the opposition?
So when I went to UP, right, and I spoke to the family there, I was doing two things. One, I was signaling to the family that we're not going to allow you to be pushed around. Yes, this has happened to you, but the entire attention of the nation is on you, which means that nothing more can happen to you. And the second reason I went there was I wanted to make others who were in that situation, other mothers and sisters who faced a similar situation, to know, look, it's not going to be so simple to get away. For example, some years ago, there was a rape of a little girl in Rajasthan. 2 days ago, I was driving back from Punjab and I got on my WhatsApp from my office that the people who raped that girl have got convicted. Right? I called her up and I said, remember the promise I made you? That we will help you with the legal aspect of this, that we will make sure that those 4 people are convicted. She's like, yes. I said, it has happened, hasn't it? She's like, yes, I believe in my country. So these are small battles that are fought also, which you don't see, but it's much more about heart, right? And if enough people do it, then you actually get a change.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, just the last thing.
Please.
I don't believe in linearity when it comes to these things. So I don't believe that political resistance is linear. I can see that I can work on something again and again and again and again and again, and nothing happens, and then suddenly the curve shoots off. Life is not linear. You persist, and suddenly you'll surprise yourself, like what just happened. So I think that's the spirit of the Congress party and the opposition parties right now, that we are resisting.
Thank you very much. Final question, final comment, final word to my friend Aditi Kumar, and then Rahul, you get to answer that question and we'll wrap up this session. Aditi.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Mr. Gandhi, for being here. I actually wanted to ask you a foreign policy question, but seeing that we're at the end of our time, maybe I'll just ask you in your closing remarks to tell us what is giving you hope about what the Congress Party can achieve given the circumstances that we're in right now? And what are the concrete steps that we need to take? What is the vision that we can give to people in India who believe in a secular India, who believe in a modern India, who believe in an India that should take its place on the world stage to address problems like climate change, to address problems that honestly we cannot as a globe address without India at the table? So what is it that we can provide right now, understanding that the institutions are rigged? I understand a lot of things are against us, but what is that you can do as a leader, and what is it that the rest of us can do to make a change?
Resistance. Resistance is a very powerful thing. If you just start to resist individually, it'll start to have an effect. When someone says to you, I don't like Muslims, or Dalits should be treated like dirt, you resist. You say, I refuse to accept that. That's what I do. I do it politically. You do it individually. Look, I fundamentally believe in people. I fundamentally believe that what is happening in India today is not the nature of Indian people. The Indian people are in a frightening situation. I've met people who have come from villages with a huge aspiration and then had nothing. No future. It's a very frightening thing. And I don't grudge them anger that comes out of that fear. It's not good enough for me to say, no, you will not be angry. I got to calm his fear. I got to say, listen, we're going to chart a path through this thing. We understand you have a fear. It's legitimate. We don't agree with your anger. We're going to rub your anger out by making sure that you can see a path forward. It's clear that I saw it in 2012 that India stopped, the Indian story unraveled. I saw it. Right? And we got to put that story together. It's not unraveled forever. It's unraveled. And now we have, you guys more than me, have the huge opportunity to construct a vision. It's going to be a global vision. It's not going to be like, 20 years ago where it was a national vision. Now you're going to construct a vision where you're sitting with the United States and China. This is what you people are going to do. I'm 50, so I'm sort of at the other end of that. But that's what we have to work together to do. I'm very hopeful. So don't take my feelings or my emotions as hopeless. They're not hopeless. You require sort of destruction for something to be built. You require failure for something to succeed. So this is the storm. It's good. This had to happen. And now we got to build on it. And we got to say, okay, now let's go. And we got to make Indian youngsters dream and believe in something big. And that goes for the United States as well. I think that's broadly it.
So I apologize that we have to bring this very important conversation to an end. Apologies to Shaheen, Pranita, Jose Luis, Rahul. I know you all had questions, but we've taken up a lot of Rahul's time. Rahul, I want to say three things to you as we close. First of all, 50 is young. Take it from me. It's young. And I certainly believe and I hope that you are going to have a great future, that the Indian people have a future of peace and prosperity and job creation. I wish the same thing for our country. Second, thank you for being so disarmingly candid, honest in your answers. I applaud all the people who asked such thoughtful questions, and I applaud the way that you engaged our students. It's really helpful to our students. Third, and finally, this session has convinced me we need to get you to Harvard Yard, Cambridge, Massachusetts.
I was thinking about it.
And
I was like, look, I was a student of this great institution. For whatever reason, I had to leave for security reason. And I am available to you anytime. Call me as many times as you want. I love the place. I remember the place fondly. So you just have to tell me, we want you here, and I'm there.
well, we're going to do that. We'll do it in the Zoom virtual world, but we look forward post-pandemic to having you with us at Harvard. This has been a very enriching conversation. I thank you, Rahul. I thank everybody who joined us from Harvard Kennedy School, from the university, from Tufts. I thank Ashley and Tanvi from the great think tank community world in Washington, D.C. Rahul, thank you. All best to you and your family.
At risk, can I just say one word to the students?
You get the last word.
Look, I've been where you are. I've been sitting where you are, and I'm telling you, please enjoy every moment of it, because when you leave that place, everything changes. So do your work, be open-minded, make friends, but remember that you have a huge opportunity that institution is giving you. It's a unique opportunity, and it's a really powerful thing if you listen carefully. Thank you.
Those are important words for our students. I think everyone heard the message. We need to leave this institution, all of us at some point, to go out back into the battle, right, in the arena of public service. So thank you, Rahul. Thanks for being with us. Thanks to everybody, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.